Welcome back to Anderson Smoke Show. Today, we are out with two of my favorite grills, and we're gonna do a legit comparison on these two. We've got the Camp Chef SmokePro SG30, the Char-Griller Gravity 980. And you guys have asked me time and time again, pellet or charcoal, Camp Chef or Char-Griller, or Camp Chef and Masterbuilt. And the truth is, they all have their place somewhere in your barbecue repertoire or in your garage or backyard. But for many people, having multiple grills really isn't an option. So today we're gonna talk about features, we're gonna talk about things that might make you want one more than the other. And enough talking, let's get into it. So like I said, I get asked all the time, which one do you like better? Which one produces the most smoke flavor? Which one cooks better? Which one runs better? Which one's more accurate? And the truth is, they're both good in a lot of those senses, but there are things about them that you might like more with one than the other. So today we're gonna talk about that. Now, first and foremost, the Char-Griller, the Gravity 980, you're running about 600 bucks for one of these. The Camp Chef SmokePro SG30, which is a little bit smaller than the Char-Griller, I think 6 inches on width, is upwards of $1,000. So when it comes to pellet grills, you have a huge range. I'm a Camp Chef fan. I do a lot of work with them. They make great products, but there are some cheaper options out there. You've got Z Grills, you've got Pit Boss. I know that there are some cheaper Camp Chef options. You've got Green Mountain Grills that have some cheaper options. You know, it's really about your budget, but they all function the same way. When it comes to these grills, the biggest difference has always been the fuel. The Char-Griller Gravity 980, the Masterbuilt Gravity series, they run on charcoal. Briquettes, lump, you can throw some hardwood chunks, some cherry, hickory, whatever in there, and you do get a more robust smoke flavor. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. With the Camp Chef, with the pellet grills, you're gonna get a cleaner, more mild smoke flavor in most cases. And you can adjust that a little bit by choosing a more robust or a bolder wood like a mesquite, but I really don't like to mess around with mesquite too much. I'm more of a hickory guy myself. But that is one of the biggest differences, is you do get a difference in flavor. Today I'm actually already filming part 2 as we speak of this video, but for the second experiment, I'm gonna be running the Royal Oak 100% charcoal pellets in this grill. And we're gonna be comparing the capabilities of the Camp Chef running the 100% charcoal versus this Char-Griller Gravity 980, which is also running 100% charcoal. So you've heard enough about the test, you've heard enough about these grills. Let's talk a little bit more technical on how these are different from one another. I'm gonna start with the Char-Griller Gravity 980. The Char-Griller Gravity 980, the Masterbuilt Gravity series, 560, 800, 1050, doesn't matter which one you're talking about. They have one moving part. They have a fan, that's it. There's no auger, there's nothing else, there's one moving part, and that's a fan. The hopper itself is what they call a gravity fed. So as that charcoal burns, it drops into the ash pan and fresh charcoal replaces it right over top. And a fan controls the temperature, and it also keeps the heat flowing into the chamber. Pellet grills, they have a little bit more complicated system, but they're not too much more. They also have a hopper, they also have a fan, but they do have an auger as well. So it is one more thing to go wrong. They can get jammed up, and it takes a little bit more work to get that cleared up. Now, me personally, my grills are never kept outside, so a lot of the jams are associated to moisture. The pellets swell, get stuck, you have to clean it out. I've never had to do that, but there are people that have. So if you're looking for ease of use and simplicity, they both run about the same, but the pellet grills do have more moving parts, and so technically there's more that can go wrong. Now, I mentioned ease of use. They both are pretty easy to use, but I'm going to say that there's not another grill, a gravity fed versus pellet grill, that runs as easily as a pellet grill. I have a hopper full of pellets, I have a power cord that I gotta plug in, and I hit start and I open the lid. In a few minutes, it's up to temperature, I drop the lid and it's ready to cook. The Char-Griller, the Masterbuilt, they are a little bit more involved and a little dirtier because you gotta handle charcoal, you gotta load up the hopper, but you also have to deal with fire starters and you have to get the fire lit before you can turn the controller on. So it is a little bit more involved. I will say though that I've learned, you know, over the past year and a half working with these grills, that a good fire starter for these grills, the gravity fed grills, makes a world of difference. I struggled at first using the wrong kind, and it took a lot of effort to get it lit. There were times I'd light it, it looked good, I'd walk away, I'd come back, and it didn't even get the charcoal lit, I'd have to try again. But I've been using the Masterbuilt fire starters, I've used the tumbleweed fire starters, I've used a paper towel with a little bit of oil on it. Those work great, and then now that I've understood that, it has eased up the process a little bit, but ease of use will always go to the pellet grills, will always go to the Camp Chef. We talked some about fuels. I mentioned the hoppers on both of these. Now, the charcoal grills, like the Char-Griller, like the Masterbuilt, they aren't as efficient as a pellet grill in most cases. We do burn a little bit more charcoal than we do pellets. Because of that, one hopper here might last 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on what you're cooking, what temperature, how many times you open the lid. But this has a 22-pound hopper. I get at 225 to 250, I get about a pound, pound and a half an hour out of those pellets. I can run this thing for 12, 15 hours straight and never have to worry about pellets. So if you're doing a long overnight cook, these are a lot easier. These, you probably have to throw some fuel in it. Now, I've done a lot of tests with temperature. I've tested this, I've tested this. This was actually a personal experiment, so there is no video on the temperature test on the Camp Chefs. And one thing I've noticed with the charcoal grills, with the charcoal gravity fed grills, is they're not as consistent all the time. Now this Char-Griller Gravity 980 does run really well once it gets up to temperature. It's pretty accurate. It maintains temperature really well, but there are some fluctuations. It's one thing that this Camp Chef pellet grill and some of my other pellet grills do flawlessly. It gets up to temperature, they react when you open the lid, and they settle when you close it. And these things run really well. I've never had a temperature issue with my Camp Chef pellet grill, whereas I can't necessarily say that I haven't had temperature concerns or issues with my Char-Griller or my Masterbuilt. Now, don't think I'm knocking on Char-Griller. I did a temperature test. I proved their claim to be correct. I'll put a link up here. If you're concerned about temperatures, watch this video. The shutdown procedures are pretty similar. Shut the grill off, close it up, let the fire choke out. The gravity fed smokers, you have to put these air dams in, you have to block off the air and it smothers the fire. Now I can tell you with 100% certainty, and it basically comes down to the fire itself and how large of a fire it's using. These pellet grills have a burn pot or a burn chamber, and they're literally like the size of a coffee mug. Inside there, you've got about a fistful of pellets that are burning. There's air blowing on it, and it's throwing new pellets on as it needs more fire. The gravity feds have a charcoal bed at the bottom of a hopper that's burning, and it's a much larger fire source, I guess you could say. Within 30 minutes of shutting off my Camp Chef, I can put this thing back in the garage with no fear of fire. It's cooled down. There's no concern with that. With the gravity fed smokers, I have felt these 3, 4, 5 hours later, and those hoppers are still hot. So it takes a while to choke the fire out. The pellet grills manage that much more efficiently, and that's really just the nature of how they run, with that coffee mug style shaped firebox or fire pot. And it's just a much smaller heat source to choke out or burn out. Not knocking these, but it's just something to know. They stay hot for a while. So both of these grills have a good grease management system, but I will say that the Char-Griller itself has a better grease management system than the Camp Chef. And I think it's just the way that it directs the grease and it collects. At the Camp Chef, all the way down here at the end is a trough, and that runs into a drip bucket, which I've got right here. You have to be careful with the pellet grills, and really any grill with grease management, but that trough will get food in there sometimes and it'll dam up and you'll get grease in the grill. It's just more susceptible to grease fires at that point. But if you keep up with the maintenance that's suggested by the manufacturer on any of these grills, you're not gonna have any issues. But grease management wise, I'm gonna say, I think the Char-Griller, that they did a good job with that. Controllers. So let's talk about controllers. We have PID controllers on both of these. And I'm an engineer. I've actually worked on live systems regarding PID control. That's proportional, integral, and derivative control. It's basically, in layman terms, cruise control for your grill. So imagine you're driving your car, you got cruise control set to 65, and all of a sudden you get to a hill. What does your car do? Automatically, it ramps up your RPMs until it gets you to 65, almost at degrees, and gets you to 65 miles an hour. Same thing when you're going downhill. It backs the engine off, backs the RPMs down because you're coasting, you're gaining free speed. Now with these controllers, it's basically doing the same thing. So when it feels or senses that, hey, it's starting to cool down, they must have opened the lid or something, it's gonna ramp up the throughput on these grills to get you back to set point. PID controls on grills is great because you don't get huge overshoots. You know, you set it to 250, you open the lid, you close the lid, and next thing you know, you're at 400. That doesn't happen with these. And that's because of the controller. It knows where it's at and where it needs to be, and it makes micro adjustments along the way so that it gets you right around set point every time. Both of these controllers run really well. Like I said, we did temperature tests. I have a video, I told you to watch it. I hope you didn't leave yet, but after that, watch that one. I've done temperature tests with this on my own. Both of these run really well, but like I said, I think the Camp Chef runs better in terms of temperature control. It's literally on the money all the time, and that's one thing that I love about it. I have rambled on so much during this video about things about these grills, and the truth is, from my perspective, I love them both. I do sense a difference. I feel like when I cook on them individually that I do sense a difference in the way the food tastes. I think you get a more bold charcoal flavor than you do with the pellet grill, but that doesn't mean that I don't like the flavor or the smokiness of the food. They're just different. So because of that, I'm already filming a part 2 as we speak. Both of these grills are running with spare ribs. We are cooking them exactly the same. So what we're doing, we're running charcoal pellets, we're running charcoal briquettes, 250 degrees spare ribs in both, seasoned exactly the same. We are going to see side by side, how does food taste cooked in a Char-Griller, gravity-fed charcoal smoker versus a Camp Chef pellet grill running charcoal pellets. 100% Royal Oak charcoal pellets. That is the true test. How does the food taste, and do you like it? I know from cooking on both of these, I love everything that I cook in either one, it doesn't matter. But today, we're putting them both to the test. So next week, I will release the part 2 when we're gonna compare the ribs. So until then, I'll see you next time at Anderson Smoke Show.